We have now entered 2026, and while this one's a little late, I couldn't miss our first month of the year, so here's the games that I played in January. 2026 edition. I started the month off with a bang with Dispatch. You know me, a big fan of Telltale games and choose your own adventure games as a whole, and so Dispatch was one I wasn't going to skip. And every moment playing this game was fantastic. The art style makes you really feel like you're in a comic book with the sharp colors and eye-catching character designs, and speaking of the characters, they're all so unique. Robert himself is an instantly likable protagonist, and everyone else always gets a chance to shine with or without whatever choices that you make in the story. And as for gameplay, with these types of games, most of the time they just focus on the story and characters, and it results in having a ton of dialogue, and the only parts where you actually play the game, quote unquote, is walking around or doing a simple fetch quest in the downtime. But half the time in Dispatch, you actually get to play a proper game when dispatching your teams, managing everybody and choosing who to send on what missions, finding synergies and picking favorites is such a fun and engaging loop. And with the game just dumping random stuff on you sometimes, it never gets boring. Out of all the releases in 2025, this was definitely one of my favorites. And carrying on the choose your own adventure train, I went back to Telltale's The Walking Dead to finish off Michonne's story, and it was good. Nothing outstanding, but it was fun as its own contained experience. With the rest of the series, this one really doesn't have any relation, I don't think, and as for its story, it's mostly much of the same. With most of the events that happen, it feels a lot like season 4 from the main series, but to a lesser degree. With the characters being what makes the games, I'm happy to say that almost everybody adds something to the table here. Now this series is only a bit shorter than the rest of the seasons, and I do feel like there was a lot more they could have done to give us more time with some of the minor characters and fully flesh out Michonne's flashbacks. Before what they did in the time they did it, again, it's a fun little contained experience. Nothing crazy, but if you like the rest of the Telltale's Walking Dead series, then I reckon it's worth checking out. And for a short while, I returned to one of my childhood favorites with Impossible Creatures. It's your average early 2000s real-time strategy game, but in this one you combine animals to make impossible creatures. It's a fun time, but yeah, I only really hopped on to relive old memories. Not much to say about it. Cloverpit. I was addicted to this game for quite a while throughout the month. It's basically if the Pokies were a roguelike. It's very similar to Balatro or Balatro, however you say it, with buying new upgrades at the shop to stack and make crazy builds while needing to reach each quota to move on. And boohoo, gambling bad, yes, but also gambling hella fun. Now I say this a lot, but this time I mean it. I could not stop playing this game. Every loss is just one more run. Every time I die, how about another? And overall, the game is incredibly simple, but so incredibly effective in what it does. And of course, after replaying Half-Life 2 partway through last year, I decided, what the heck, and came back to finally finish episode 1 and 2 for the first time ever, surprisingly enough. Now my first experience with anything Half-Life related was when I was about 9 or something with the orange box and the Xbox 360. And Half-Life 2 was already out for a couple of years before I was even born, and getting to it at whatever age I was, even as a chud child, I knew this was the shit. And I was on some peak back then, replaying over and over Halos 1 to 3, COD Black Ops 2, World at War, and Modern Warfare 1 and 3. But of course, my first time with Half-Life 2, I had to play episode 2 first, right? Because it's the latest one, so it has to be the best. But I have vivid memories of the beginning 10 or so minutes from each of the episodes and base Half-Life 2, and going back to them now pretty much 10 years later was an experience in itself. As for the episodes as a whole, it's just more Half-Life 2 gameplay, absolute peak. Hunters are incredibly scary when you actually think about it, and now I actually fully understand the Half-Life 3 hype. I had no idea Half-Life 2 ended on a fucking cliffhanger like that. Seriously, all these years, over 2 whole decades since the game being out, and the one piece of media I never had the ending spoiled was motherfucking Half-Life 2? Absolutely wild, but yeah, I'll be there for Half-Life 3 when it releases with the Steam machine. But throughout the month, in my downtime to relax, watching YouTube or something on my second monitor, you know, my favorite time of day is when I'm just messing around with whatever game I feel like slaving my free hours away with. And for this week, I had a couple of bangers, starting with The Last of Us Part 2 No Return mode, which I spent a good while grinding and unlocking the characters with after beating the main story. It's another roguelike mode, you know me, but with the incredibly fluid combat from Part 2 and all of the different variables and locations you go back to throughout a run, it just seems perfect for this type of game. Plus, it's just great fun. I'm really glad to see a bunch more AAA and higher budget studios making roguelikes, and it's peak. And I've also been having a bunch of fun on the Momentum mod playtest. If you don't know, this is a standalone game built by a bunch of talented and dedicated people working to have all source movements from all of Valve's games and others into one contained experience. This includes Surf, B-Hop, KZ, CS 1.6 KZ, TF2 rocket jumping and sticky jumping, Half-Life 2 accelerated backhopping, and a couple more. And while it is still in a playtest currently, still yet to release, you can just go to Steam and join it for free and join the Discord as well to share bugs and such. I've already spent quite a few hours in here playing my favorite game modes, since most of my time spent in CSGO before CS2 came along was in surf maps. And now through Momentum mod, I've developed a deep love for KZ as well, so if you're a fan of this stuff, go check it out. And also, throughout the month, I have spent a lot of time grinding Bloons Tower Defense 6. For really most of my life, the Bloons series has always kind of been with me. BTD 5 is always going to be my goat, and to be honest, when I learned of BTD 6, I wasn't a big fan of it with the drastic change in art style and the heroes and stuff, but now going back to it, I'm basically a complete addict. In this month alone, I raised my playtime on Steam from 14 to 52 hours, and I'm having a blast just completing quests, maxing out my monkeys, and metal grinding every map. And there's just so much to do in this game, even though it's always been a simple gameplay loop, it's peak. Then for a short while, I played a bit of the How Many Dudes demo. Obviously the game isn't fully out yet, but the demo still has a fair amount of content and it's pretty damn fun. Another roguelike, but this one is a lot more unique than anything else I played. Basically, you build up your army of dudes with different abilities and effects and have them fight different type of enemies to keep upgrading. It reminds me a lot of Totally Accurate Battle Simulator back in the day, but even though it's only a demo and after a couple of hours it does get a bit repetitive, I'm sure the full release is gonna be pretty damn good. And of course, to mark off my finale in my list of confident games this month, I have Powerwash Simulator. Now back in late December 2022 and early 2023, this was where I first picked the game up and I was grinding the hell out of it. But I haven't really been back since, but recently I picked it up, finished career mode, and I've just started picking apart all the bonus levels and it's like I never left. Of course, it's a very simple game, just click and point, but watching your progress over time, moving through each map and object, leaving every bit of it spotless as you go, is such a soothing and relaxing experience. It's almost like a trance, but yeah, I ain't got much more to say in this one. And also this month, I hopped on a bit of Rust, and I'm sorry to say, but I kind of had fun. And of course, now I'm done with everything in Half-Life 2, I had to go back to the 90s and finally get to Half-Life 1. And yeah, last year I did play Black Mesa, the fan-made kind of official Half-Life remake, and that was a blast. But now in the original, going back through the areas I've already explored in Black Mesa and seeing what they changed was definitely an experience for sure. Obviously, Half-Life 1 is one of the GOATs, but it's hard to say that playing it through in 2026, it didn't feel dated. Of course, there are many flaws in the game and some story parts that didn't feel all too polished, but the good still outweighed the bad. Level design is something I praise Black Mesa with, and going through them again in the original was great to see. But honestly, and this applies for Half-Life 2 as well, but I've never really been a big fan of their gunplay as a whole. There's just too many weapons, and the way you fight enemies and ways of getting ammo and such, it's hard to explain, but it always feels to me too raw or unoptimized or video gamey. I don't know how to describe it, and I don't have the words for it, but compared to most other games with similar action and linear gameplay to Half-Life, especially modern action games, I've never fully jived with any of Half-Life's gunplay, but it more so just feels like a limitation of its time, and most games back then always have to have this big loadout of weapons that all achieve similar tasks, that all use different ammo types, but I know it's just a nitpick, but biggest of all, holy fuck was Zen in OG Half-Life some ass. Black Mesa does give it justice, admittedly adding too much filler, but by the end of Half-Life, I just wanted out, man. And finally, at the end of the month, I finished with another choose your own adventure game, Detroit Become Human. And this has turned into one of my favorite games of all time. The story is incredibly well paced and relevant to modern day issues, but with the three main characters, I'm a huge fan of how varied the gameplay is with this game. It's not all just dialogue choices and relationships. Just like Dispatch, this one actually has good gameplay, oh my god. But with Connor playing as a robot detective hellbent on his goal, compared to Kara's more sneaky, important decision making and fugitive role, compared to Marcus's empire building and protesting, every one of the three all provides something to crave for. And while you're always on very different sides of the same coin, you always have someone to root for. I'm very happy with how my playthrough ended for the most part, and there are a billion ways the game can go, and that is probably my favorite part. There are so many choices you can make to shape your outcome, and yet every second of the game feels quality. I cannot begin to imagine what hell the writer's room must have been, but goddamn, this shit's peak.